Okay, good day, folks. My name is Tobias Nassif, and I'm one of the directors of the Space Data Association. In my day job, I work for Viasat running our satellite control center. I don't know how much all of you know about the Space Data Association, but hopefully give you a little bit introduction here to it. And then at the end, open the floor up if you have any questions. So let's see, let's get started. All right, the Space Data Association, we established the SDA in 2009. The founders of the SDA, Eutelsat and Inmarsat, Intelsat, and SES, got together in order to solve what we saw as a major problem with the current situation of space situational awareness, and that we weren't getting the service that we needed to ensure our safety of flight from the U.S. Air Force 18th Space Squadron. So the SDA came together as a group in order to say, how can we do this better? How can we share our ephemeris data in a way that is secure, that is basically, secure way of sharing the data so that we can make sure we don't run into each other. So we took a good amount of time. It took us about a year to get this all put together and establish an agreeable legal structure and agreements that allow for data sharing and ensure that data is only used for its current intended purposes. One of our chief technology advisor at the time was AGI, Analytical Graphics, is now ComSpock, and they run for us what is we call the Space Data Center, and that provides all the flight safety exchange and processing of the data and providing the collision avoidance messaging. So today the SDA has about 30 satellite operators involved with it. We have 503 LEO satellites in our system and 269 GEO satellites. So why did we think we needed the SDA? Well, again, the state at the time of collision avoidance services was not very good. The Air Force provided the free service. It had its issues, had its doubts, and we tried to work with them to correct it. They did not have the capability of improving it. So using the basis of the SDC as the old Socrates system, we started looking at how we can share this data to make sure that we are better able to have a better collision avoidance. We're able to take the owner-operator ephemeris data, and that's the real key to the whole thing of the SDA, is using actual owner-operator ephemeris, which has the maneuver information built in. And that's something that the Air Force did not have and was not able to process, which then gave you a better solution knowing exactly where your spacecraft was in relationship to other satellites as well as debris. As far as we can tell, there's not many other organizations that have that kind of data sharing today, and has really improved our safety of flight and knowing what is really out there and what we may be running into. So again, the objective of the SDA were to promote responsible behaviors of operators in all orbital domains, give the operators and members a system to enhance their safety of flight, improve the accuracy of our collision avoidance. And then we also can look for other ways of providing data sharing. And then finally, we want to work together to help other parties, other either commercial entities or government agencies, define what the next generation of collision avoidance and SSA systems or STM system and capabilities should be. So let me talk a little bit about the Space Data Center. As I mentioned, that's the heart of the SDA. That is where all the processing gets done. It provides the collision avoidance monitoring, conjunction assessment, maneuver validation and flight safety for the operators. And also, just almost as important, is it provides contact information so that members can contact other operators when they may have a conjunction and know who the right people to talk to are. So if you ever had a conjunction with a known object and you wanted to know who that operator was or who are the right people to talk to, you're not having to look up and finding a general information. You have the exact person that is you need to talk to come up with whatever avoidance maneuver plans you may want. So the Space Data Center, as I mentioned, is operated for us by ComSpot. And the system is geographically separated redundancy. So we don't have just a single set of servers. We have servers in geographically diverse areas. It provides a high level of data security and encryption, as well as some of the best practices for information assurance. So we have a good reliability and a good assurance that our data is safe and unable to be corrupted. So this simplified diagram of how the SDC works, essentially the owner operators input their raw ephemeris into the SDC, their ephemeris including their maneuver information and their maneuver plans, and into the SDC, and out comes out the CA results. So we get back from the SDC what potential collisions may be. Now, in the event that you have a close approach, or one of the CDMs from the 18th Space Wing comes back, says you have a close approach coming, you're able to put in some what we call, the avoidance maneuvers into the system, and that'll be run automatically to see if you take any action on a maneuver, how is that going to affect you and impact you. You don't have to wait days or weeks for that information. It comes back to you in a matter of hours. The SDC is also then a clearinghouse for the members to provide that data into the U.S. Air Force or Space Force's system, so that they have the most current information as they're doing their CA activities. So the SDC feeds that data in, the CDMs come back through the SDC directly to the operators, but also back through the SDC. And then the SDC also compares the Space Force, the 18th Space Wing CDMs against our own data within the Space Data Center, and gives you a comparison to say how accurate the CDMs may be. And you could take those results and take action as needed. So the SDC does all the ongoing comparative analysis. So it's scrutinizing all the operator information against the Air Force's, the Space Force's, 18th Space Wing data, against their CDMs and the SP data. So it's running that data against the Space Force, they said SP data, identifies the discrepancies that may be in the products there, and works again with the 18th to help resolve some of those discrepancies. If you notice, when you get a CDM from the 18th, for those who are using the Space Forces service, you'll notice you get a note saying, please note that whatever it is, ephemeris is not validated, because the 18th Space Wing does not validate any of the ephemeris that is sent in by the owner operator. They don't have that capability of doing that. That is one of the services that the SDC does provide. It validates and provides rigorous quality control to the owner operator data. So the owner operator data comes in, the SDC analyzes that data, compares it to previous ephemeris that you may have sent in, to some of its observations that it takes using its own sensors, to really validate and make sure that your ephemeris is accurate and in the right, and well, is accurate. It'll then take that and normalize that data to feed into the 18th Space Wing's systems, so that all the owner operator data coming from the SDC is the same format, time, reference, etc., to be processed by the Air Force's system. So it's no action that needs to be taken on the owner operator's part. You can submit your data in whatever format you're comfortable with, and the SDC will do all the data conversions. So the SDC and the SDA, we were basically a pioneer of a lot of what is considered best practices for flight safety services. Again, we have a computation legally secure frameworks, machine-to-machine interfaces, so all our services are automated. We're not requiring a lot of manual input. The operator phone book allows to provide a points of contact for you to talk to in order to help resolve any close approaches, extensive comparative SSA for quality control, the data sharing, and then also working with the 18th Space Wing to ensure the best solution that's possible. So how did the SDA and the SDC change space situational awareness? We've been providing effective conjunction assessments for a large number of operators. As I mentioned, 30 operators are currently in the system. We've managed to foster real cooperation between operators. And, you know, as we all know, we live in and work in a very competitive industry, but as operators, it is important that we work together to keep our environment and our operating space secure and safe. And that's worked out really well. Over the last 10 years, our experts at the ComSpoc within the SDC have demonstrated what a good approach to effective SSA is in managing close approaches and collision avoidance. And then the SDC systems benefit from the ComSpoc's experts who are monitoring that data quality and comparing the information from various sources. So in addition to the TLE and SP data that we would get from the 18th, we also, the ComSpoc and the SDC have some organic optical sensors that they use. They also get some data from outside organizations in order to form a catalog that, and they homogenize the catalog to provide the best overall source of data for collision avoidance. So you may ask, why do I want to join the SDA? Well, as an SDA member, your operators, we are collectively a lot stronger as one organization when talking about safety of flight. So working together in a single voice, we can help influence some of the safety of flight discussions going on within both the US government as well as the EU and other areas. So we work as a collective bargaining group, so to speak. We have been operational for over 10 years and have a very high availability rate. As far as I know, we have never had a system outage. The SDA and SDC teams collectively have the experience to manage the algorithms that we produce, and they continuously improve those algorithms that are being used. The SDC screens all the products using the latest owner-operator ephemeris every 6 hours. So when you're working with the 18th Space Control Squadron, they do a screen about once or maybe twice a day, and they usually don't use the owner-operator ephemeris. They're screening against their own observations. The SDC is producing products every 6 hours to ensure the most accurate CA products. And also, finally, that last bullet on the bottom, given a lot of the modern spacecraft propulsion systems today, electric propulsion, where we are maneuvering many times a day, our owner-operator ephemeris takes that into account and puts that into solution, whereas the 18th Space Control Squadron, with their single observations, many times they are propagating out based on the single observation they took, and sometimes do not have an accurate position of where we actually are when they're conducting their CA runs. Okay, so the SDA's approach is to obtain data use and control. So as I mentioned, we have some strong legal frameworks in place for the proper use or what that data can be used for that we're contributing. So we have permitted uses for the SDA products, and I'll cover that in a second here. We also have prohibited uses, which you're not allowed to use. And the parties sign the legal agreement when you join to obey by those rules and use of the information. So what are some of the permitted uses? So we're able to use this data for the operational support for the safety of flights. It can be used for EMI and RFI resolution. So if you're having an EMI problem and you want to see if there's someone that can help you geolocate that source, you can have a point of contact of who a neighbor may be or who another satellite operator may be in the area and their exact location to help you with your geolocation. It can be used for the support of insurance underwriting. letting your insurers know that you are taking the most prudent efforts against collisions as possible. And then as required by any national regulatory agencies. What you cannot use the data for is for any other commercial purposes. So the data in the SDC can't be used for sales, planning, or marketing. It cannot be used to help secure orbital spectrum rights, and you cannot transmit it to any third parties except potentially for any other safety of flight organizations. And then it can't be used for anything else that is not up above in those permitted uses. All right, so why does the US system that I think many of us all use require SDA augmentation? Well, there is a limitation to that legacy data. First of all, it's using the public TLE catalog for the most part. The 18th Space Wing does not use even some of their best data in a lot of the processing that they give out for the commercial operators. A lot of the data, as I mentioned before, can be inaccurate. It can be sometimes, wrong as they propagate out incorrectly. And they have a limited amount of sensors that they're using to generate their orbital data, which are susceptible to weather-related outages. I think I just kind of covered this, that there are deficiencies in some of the 18th Space Control Wing or Squadron's positional data. Many times the CDMs have issues, covariances are not taken into account, or they're not accurate enough. So there is an inherent inaccuracy in the data that we are getting in this free data from the 18th Space Control Squadron, US Space Force. As a matter of fact, since mid-2018, we have typically seen that about 20% of our GEOSAT members have inaccurate CA results from the 18th Space Wing. Again, it's because they don't interpolate the ephemeris data they get. They don't propagate it correctly. They're not spending the time to really analyze the data as the SDC does. So where are we looking at going with the SDA? So essentially our goal within the SDC and the SDA is to really help identify and identify a better service that the governmental agencies, whether that be the US government, EU, or any other government, provide better STM services for the satellite and space operators. We're trying to work closely as we establish a Department of Commerce here in the US space traffic management prototype. And again, we believe that there is strength in numbers, and the more members we have, the more satellites in the system. Not only does it make our operations in space safer, but it also provides us with a larger voice in helping define how we can get better services from our government agencies in the future. So, but I can think the next question, hopefully you guys have, because I'm sure my talk here really impressed all of you and you're all ready to sign up. You're probably wondering, how much does this cost? Because that is always a question that us operators, as being as frugal as we typically are, really want to know. Well, the services provided by the SDC are actually relatively inexpensive in the grand scheme of things. So a standard member, the dues are $10,000 per year, and that does not limit you on the number of satellites that you have currently. So that is, you provide, and what you get for that $10,000 a year is all the contact information for other satellite operators. It allows you to provide your satellite ephemeris and maneuver plans into the system. And in return, you receive collision warnings and maneuver outcomes. I should say that you provide your contact information, satellite ephemeris, and maneuver plans. And in return, you get the collision warnings, maneuver outcomes, and the people that you need to talk to help that. We do have other types of memberships, really not applicable, I think, to most people on this call. The associate member, those are folks that do not have any or operate or own any satellites, but just want to be part of the SDA for whatever reasons they have. And then we have data contributors, and those are operators that may not want to get the warnings and everything, but they understand the value that the SDA and SDC provide to the greater community, and they provide their ephemeris or maneuver plans at no charge at all. So with that, I know that went pretty quick. Yes, it did go very fast for the time we had allotted, but I'd like to open up any questions that people may have. Yeah, typically it's between 4 and 7 days. You'll get the notice that you have an encounter coming, and they can start taking action. Either depending on how close it may be, if you want to submit an alternate maneuver plan, what if I did this, what would happen? You can start running those what if scenarios. There's probably no reason why it can't be done in a longer cycle. It's just then, as just with our own ephemeris, the farther out you go, how accurate are those predictions? We would not directly necessarily assist or give you any recommendations on maneuver. That would be something that you would have to decide. But what the system does allow you to do by running these various scenarios, you can test out what your maneuver is going to do. So if you say, hey, if I introduce X amount of delta V and run that into the system, it'll give you back what that does as far as that particular close approach you were dealing with, and what that may open or close, depending on what happens, the distance. But it also will let you know that by making that maneuver, what you may encounter with other objects in space. So you're able to run those scenarios. But as the SDC, SDA would not actually give you a recommendation on what to do. No, not at all. No, just kidding. Yes, of course. So if you have interest in joining the organization, we will get you out the set of documents for review, and can get that process started. And obviously, if you don't like what you're seeing, there's no obligation, of course. But I think most of us have found, and again, we took a lot of time and effort many years ago to put this together to get everyone to agree to it. And for the most part, we have not had any issues with any of the commercial operators signing the documents as is. The only time we encountered any kind of pushback or questions or anything were when we were dealing with government agencies like EUMETSAT or NOAA or NASA. They obviously had a whole different approach or concerns from the whole sovereignty side of it. But I think your folks will find that the requirements and the documentation are fairly straightforward and agreeable. But yes, to answer your question, we can get those documents out for your review, of course. Yeah, sure. Sorry. Yeah, I should have had that in the slides there. So the SDA is run by a set of directors. There are 4 what we call executive directors, and those are permanent seats held by Eutelsat and Marsat, Intelsat, and SES. And they appoint a director into those slots, and they'll typically rotate those every couple of years, or some have been around for a lot longer. And then annually we have elections for 2 standard member directors. So there's the levels of membership. When I showed you that slide there, that $10,000 per year are for the standard members. The 4 executive members, Eutelsat, Intelsat, and Marsat SES, they contribute a significantly much more money into keeping the SDA going. So they basically cover the balance of the costs of what the standard members don't keep up with. So we have 2 standard members and on the board, and that's comprised now. It's myself from Viasat, and then Erica Rosetto from Embratel Star One are the 2 standard members, and between the 6 of us, we run the SDA. We do have our technical support comes from, again, the ComSpoc. We have legal and regulatory support from a gentleman named Andrew Duva. And we have our PR support from a company called Radical Moves. They do a lot of our marketing and setting things up like this up. And then we're incorporated in the Isle of Man, and our corporation, if you want to call it partner, or the people that help run that part of the whole legal side of the business, is Mansat out of Isle of Man. So that is currently stored, the SDC data is stored on individual servers at the ComSpoc. We're currently looking at migrating that to either an AWS or Microsoft Azure platform as we go through some modernization of the SDC system. So currently they're on hard servers, ComSpoc, and at a data center, I believe, in the UK. So we have a set of data in the US, a set of data in Europe. Then as we're looking at migrating it to the AWS cloud or Azure cloud, how we'll have that, continue to have that geographic separation. That's correct. That's correct. So the system will give you the feedback on what the results of your updated maneuver plan would be, but the SDC would not give you a recommendation as to what to do, but will process what you input and give you the results so that you can make an informed decision on what kind of maneuver you'd like to make, if a maneuver at all. So one of the things that we found with this is, prior to my coming to Viasat, I spent a number of years with Intelsat. We had, close approaches, probably on the order of 15 to 20 per month. So we would get those from the 18th Space Wing, and they were notoriously inaccurate. And we have spent a lot of time analyzing them, figuring out what is real, what is not real. Once we started using the SDC, a lot of that became easier to do, because we would get the 18th Space Wing information, and then the SDC gave us an analysis of its results of what it came up with, also what they saw from the 18th Space Wing. And so it allowed us to spend less time having to investigate inaccurate CDMs. Yeah, and then the system will get set up. So part of the sign up process is, once reviewing the documents, signing documents, and then we'd have your technical teams, your flight dynamics, your IT teams work on getting the correct security certificates in place and automation of the data transfer, so that you can automatically send your ephemeris in and automatically receive the CDM's messages without having to go out to a website and downloading or pulling anything down. It can be completely automated. So what this was what a first of a couple of these kind of presentations that I'll be giving over the next probably month or two. Hopefully I'll get better at it, because I don't think it came out as good as I practiced. Sorry about that, folks. You're like the guinea pigs here for this. What we're also going to do is set up a more technical presentation from our SDC partner, the ComSpoc, to give you guys about how the SDC works in a little more details, a little more technical background and information. So you can be looking forward to getting an invite for that as well in the future. Hopefully that helps you guys in coming up with a decision here. I do appreciate your time. I know as an operator, it's difficult to sometimes take some time out to listen to this when you're busy doing your jobs. Space is not always friendly for all of us, but again, appreciate your time. Hope to hear back from some of you as far as interest in the organization. As I said, it's been very beneficial for for us to come in there to really give us a better sense and a better situational awareness of what's going on in the environment. And I think as space gets more and more crowded and contested and congested, services like this are going to be very important to ensuring we can keep our operating environment safe and out of trouble.